It's 5 o'clock, so you please rise and join me for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin with our open forum, a time at which citizens in our district can come forward and address the board. Is there anyone that would like to come forward at this time?
Do I sit or stand?
You can sit and you got to push that button. Please state your name and address.
My name is Tony Trow, 522 Park Avenue, Albert Lee. I had not planned to speak tonight, but I would like to address you as friends and citizens of the city of Albert Lee. We have seen our school enrollment, high school enrollment, go from the 700s to the 200s. We've lost some major industries here. We've replaced most of those with jobs that are probably not as good as the ones we lost, but we're hanging in there. I'm concerned that if we don't have a hospital, if I were considering bringing a new business to Albert Lee with employees, it would not be an Albert Lee without a hospital. Now, the city council has passed a resolution saying that we really need to keep our hospital in our community. I fully expect that the county board will do so tomorrow morning. And those of you who can, I would like to see you enter a resolution that we need to keep our hospital. That's it.
I think if you look at our agenda, we do have it later on, so.
Good. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to address the board? Okay, we'll move on to approval of today's agenda. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I push the button. Lights on. Okay, my name is Don Sorensen. I live at 72823 220th Street. Along with Tony, I'm very concerned about the future of Albert Lee and would encourage you as board members to pass a resolution to retain our hospital. I think it is critical for the survival of the city. I graduated from school here about 1956. One of the larger classes that were at the time, and I've watched it go up. It's been a steady downcline for years. There's lots of reasons for that, but if we lose our full-service hospital, we are going to see many more problems than you have to work with right now. I expect you'll see much smaller classes and be much more difficult to work with do your jobs, and it'll be much harder to attract people to the city. That's all I gotta say. I think this is the most important issue that Albert Lee has faced, and it's in my lifetime. It's critical that we maintain that full-service hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come forward? Okay. Move on to approval of today's agenda. Is there a motion to do so? Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 5 is consent items. Is there a motion to approve the consent items? So moved. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent items signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to reports, and we'll start with the school board this evening, and I'm gonna just make a couple of comments, and then we'll move on to others. I think that if you watched our June meetings, we did have an evaluation of our superintendent, which I feel was very extensive. We started on June 9th with an update by several staff members on successes, challenges, and future focus areas. Then 360 was completed by the reports, or those that do report to the superintendent. And then the board completed their own evaluations. And then we met on June 19th in closed session, and I have a summary that I would like to read for that. So the board met in closed session on June 19th, 2017 to evaluate the performance of Superintendent Funk. The board reviewed feedback for those who directly report to Superintendent Funk, had a discussion and concluded that Dr. Funk's strengths include development and support of the administrative team, financial leadership of the district, increasing opportunities for students, and strategic planning. There are opportunities for growth in some areas of communication and professional interactions. And so I want to thank the board for their time and going through the process. I felt it was a good process. Hopefully you did too. And so I just wanted to give everyone an update on that. So I'm going to start with you, Niels, because I think I started over here last time. So
Actually, you started over here, but that's okay. I just got an email this morning, which was very interesting. I'm sure, and you folks did too, I believe, from Val Qualic. And it emphasizes the importance of preparing students for things other than a four-year college. And I don't know if you had a chance to read that, but if you didn't, it's excellent. It's a reference to an article in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, and the article pretty much reinforces everything that a lot of us have been talking about. Mm-hmm. And so I was very encouraged to see that, and it looks like things are moving in the right direction. We have employment opportunities here in Albert Lea that don't require four-year college education. We have people in Albert Lea, employers who are willing to become involved in training students. We have to fulfill the jobs that they can't, quite frankly, they can't fill right now. We have a community college in our area that can partner us in this endeavor. So I think I just want to take every chance I can to put in a plea for us to really concentrate on that. Other than that, I think, Dave, you were on the, so I'll leave.
Jill?
I was involved in some community efforts to save Morin Park for some of our low SES students, so I'm happy that that was accomplished. I also have attended some of the hospital meetings, so I'm happy to see that on the agenda tonight. I also attended the Freeborn County Partners in Prevention meeting, and they'll have a booth this year again at the fair, so everyone, please stop by if you're at the fair. We're also looking for volunteers if anybody would like to help staff that booth. It helps young people make good decisions rather than poor decisions regarding chemical use and abuse, and you get a free fair ticket and parking pass that day. Thanks.
This last month or so, it's been very interesting. I've had an opportunity to meet some great people, and I'm glad to see our sex trafficking presentation on our agenda tonight, and the gal's here to talk about that. And then also, as Neil had mentioned, I had an opportunity to be part of the interview committee today for the new head wrestling coach, and had 3 very nice candidates that we were able to talk to.
Yeah, I don't have much. I've also attended some of the Save Our Hospital meetings, so I'm happy to see it's on the agenda. I know a lot of the community members that are here today, a lot of them didn't speak, but I see some familiar faces that I know really want to save all the services in our hospital. And then also, I just want to say I do think the superintendent evaluation went very smoothly, and thank you to Ken and all the administrators and Jim Querum and everyone for helping facilitate that. That was like a big undertaking, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next report is from our teachers, and we have Janice Jeffrey.
Hello. I wanted to share with you some of the things that teachers are doing this summer outside of their contract time as they get ready for their professional duties coming up this fall. I put out a question on Facebook and got a response from several people, and here are some of their responses. Master's program, Master's plus 30s program, an on-course seminar, preparing to mentor in the MDE mentor program, attending workshops on trauma, social work, summer institute, responsive classroom training, STEM science classes, 4-day kindergarten conference, applying and getting grants for the classroom, working on curriculum, reading young adult and professional books, teaching ACT classes, teaching at Riverland, marching band, gifted and talented symposiums, webinars, taught tech integrated session at the Perpich Arts Integration Workshop, Wind Down Wednesday literacy tent, summer school, of course, credit recovery, and athletic programs. All these things are keeping our teachers busy this summer.
Thank you. Great report. Moving on to curriculum and instruction, Jerry Bijak, recap of the trip in March to Europe.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'll make this pretty quick. So this is one of the things that's kind of the last thing that's required of me, of going on the trip. So we went in spring break. Like I said, when I presented a couple years ago about this, kids weren't going to miss any days. We didn't miss any days. Flights were on time. We had 65 people go, half adults, half kids. Well, not 32 and a half, but you get the picture. So we landed in Milan, Italy. Took a bus down to Cinque Terre, which is the 5 villages right along the coast. One of the more picturesque places. I got one picture of it. We stayed at a hotel a couple nights just outside of there, and then we had 2 buses, and then we basically followed the coast of the Mediterranean. There's not a highway that follows it perfectly, but you get some nice views. So we went to Monaco. We did not stay there. Little pricey. One apartment, 900 square feet, was about $18 million to buy. Then we stayed in Nice, which is just outside of there. So we stayed there for a couple days. A couple people commented that's where the terrorist attack was a few days ago, Bastille Day last year. And so we were at that spot, and it was kind of humbling. Then we did a really long drive from Nice to Barcelona, stayed there for a couple days, and then we flew out of Barcelona. So it was busy. So here's some of the kids, rounding them all up at the airport with a 3-hour wait was a little hard to do, but got some of them. There's me, my favorite student, that's my daughter. So there's with Cinque Terre, one of the villages in the background. This is us in the palace, in front of the palace at Monaco, so that's everybody. The 2 guys that are sprawled out in the lower right-hand corner, those are our 2 Italian guides, Christian and Vincenzo, and they were awesome. EF, this is the second time I've done this, and they make it so smooth, and the kids love Christian and Vinny, and there were 0 issues when it came to anything with that. Took really good care of us. This was French Riviera view at lunch one day, so that's pretty cool. This is Nice. That's the promenade. That's where the road along the coast. That's where the terrorist attack occurred. But this is did a little bit of hiking up some stairs and got that kind of panoramic view. This is in La Sagrada Familia, which is the longest running construction project in the world. That started building it in 1882, I believe it was. And they're hoping to have it finished 2026. So long process, but that was like my favorite picture inside the cathedral. And so I didn't want to bore you with a bunch of pictures, but anyway, and there's a list of the kids ranging from 8th grade to 12th grade. And so we had 32 kids and 33 adults, including a few former grads who went as chaperones for their brother or younger brother or sister. We had a lot of parents go. We had a few grandparents go, and it went smoothly. The only two issues we had was one girl got her cell phone stolen in the subway. We told them they're pickpockets galore, don't have it out. Did. Pocket, she was crushed, but made it. And had one adult broke a Q-tip off in her ear and had to go to the equivalent of an urgent clinic. But other than that, it was smooth, loved it. The kids had a great time, the adults had a great time. I've seen a few around town, they're like, are you doing another one? I don't know, but if I do, I will do my duty and come talk to you guys, so, thanks.
Any questions or comments by the board?
Yeah, oh, for sure. There was nothing, we didn't go off the beaten path. This was different than the other trip. The other trip was very intense. This was very relaxed, and a lot of people shopped. And like 6 people bought extra suitcases just to get their stuff home. So, whatever. Yeah, 2 buses, since we had so many people. And it was just us, because I really wanted to, having 65, I didn't expect that many. Last time we had 40. If we had 48, we had our own bus, and so it was nice to, if we got over 60, like, they give us a free bus. So it was just us. It was great. Thanks.
Yep, thank you very much. Moving on to safe and healthy schools, we have a policy for review. Jim Querum on the family and medical leave policy.
Good afternoon. We have one change to the family and medical leave policy. So it's not significant changes, just one change in order for the policy to both be in line with the Code of Federal Regulations and MSBA's model policy. And it's this sentence. Matter of fact, I think it's word for word with the Code of Federal Regulations. And MSBA is recommending that we put that in the policy. And it has to do with the definition of spouse.
And this is an action item. Jim, is this required by law?
It is federal regulation, yes.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion? Further discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to accept the policy change signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Next item of business is Mayo Clinic Health Systems discussion.
8.2. 8.2, yeah, maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our local sex trafficking presentation, and so we have 3 individuals. Would you please come forward to the table? Thanks, Dave.
Got it. Deb Flatness, I'm a detective here with the Albert Lea Police Department. I've been a police officer for 20 years. I sent you some information, and I'll just try to go over it as quickly as I possibly can. I've been a police officer, like I said, for 20 years. I didn't hear anything about sex trafficking or really know much about it up until the spring of 2013 when we had a woman that got dragged down the highway. outside of her car. And that's when I met Vanity, and Vanity taught me a little bit about what I didn't know about sex trafficking. She was on a circuit of exotic dancers from Milwaukee that were traveling from Milwaukee to Chicago, Austin, Albert Lee, north to Duluth, and then south again to Des Moines before going over to the oil fields in North and South Dakota. Vanity, through her, I learned that there was not only the group of women that were passing through the strip bar in town here and the strip bar in Myrtle, but there was also 2 other competing groups of women who were traveling through. So that was 4 circuits of women traveling through the area involved in sex trafficking. I understood prior to this that, didn't understand, I guess I thought women were in this because they wanted easy money and they were willing to do that, and the men were prepared to pay the money to have sex with these women, and it was like nobody cared. It was no harm, no foul. I learned through her that, and through subsequent training, that a large majority, 85%, are forced into this kind of a lifestyle through one means or another, and that once they're in there, 100% have the idea that there's no way to get out once you're in it. And we feel that prevention is crucial. We've learned from some of the survivors that it takes up to 8 contacts with law enforcement before they'll actually seek help to get out of it again. We brought in the OJP as the Albert Lee Police Department. We brought in the Office of Justice Programs to help us learn more about this because we hadn't heard about it. There was no complaints. The Johns aren't going to complain, the dancers aren't going to complain, and the pimps are certainly not going to complain. So we hadn't heard about it. We brought in the Office Justice Programs, and they pointed out our potential, high potential for sex trafficking in Albert Lee because we have 2 large truck stops, we have a bus stop, we have a lot of hotels, we have major freeways crossing here, just numerous means of people traveling through, and it was a very mobile business. It's a very mobile business. We have heard reports of friends recruiting friends in school. Sex trafficking quite often goes hand in hand with drug dealing, so that if a person is dealing drugs, then they also want to be able to provide you with a young boy or a young girl so that they're full-service dealers. And students in school have reportedly tried recruiting their friends for their uncle's drug dealing business because he wanted to be a full-service business. We've had reports of a gentleman in a camper who was providing young boys with alcohol and cigarettes in order to get them to spend time in the camper with him. Well, that's sex trafficking on a smaller scale. It is still paying somebody for sex. It's a big business, it's a big economy, it's a big money maker, and so it is going to be spreading even more. It's driven by the porn industry in that people who get involved in porn begin to get a more warped sense of sex. They are used to seeing things that are objectifying people as far as sex, young boys, young girls, and getting into more risky behaviors through the porn, and you need to have somebody that you can pay in order to engage in those risky behaviors. So it's mostly online these days and through texting and sexting. Backpage was famous for selling the ads for the people buying and selling sex, and Craigslist. Now there's a multitude of websites where you can bargain for and pick out the person that you want to have sex with for that amount of money. It's young boys, young girls get into it to support their drug habit quite often. They've got an expensive $200 a day drug habit, for instance, and they're not going to make that money working at Walmart or at the fast food place, so they go out and sell themselves. in order to make that money. And it's very dangerous, so that you need somebody to protect you, and therefore you hook on to a pimp, somebody who's theoretically going to watch your back when you're doing all these things. It's not a glamorous lifestyle. It's very dangerous. People's lifespans are about 7 years. The average age of entry is 12 to 15 years old. Thus, the reason that we really want to get involved in the school and teach the kids the signs of what to look for, and teach the instructors what to look for, and red flags that they'll see in a student who might be being sex trafficked. That was my 5-minute, I think, spiel.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you tonight and your willingness to consider being proactive on this issue that affects students. My name is Laura Sutherland, and I'm the Safe Harbor Regional Navigator for Southeastern Minnesota. This was a position that was created back in 2014 by the Minnesota Department of Health to implement our state's Safe Harbor law. Minnesota is a leader in the nation in having this law, and in summary, the law recognizes that youth can be and are at risk for sexual exploitation, and that it's imperative for all of us working with youth to be able to recognize the red flags and warning signs, as Detective Flatness said, and also to connect those students with appropriate services. In my position as Regional Navigator, I cover 12 counties in southeastern Minnesota. I provide direct services to victims. I provide trainings to system professionals, those folks who come into contact with youth and would be in a good position to recognize that they might be potentially being exploited. And then I also am charged with providing prevention education to the students in our region. In our office, I am housed in victim services for Dodge, Fillmore, and Olmsted County. Though, as I said, I cover 12 counties. We have developed a curriculum, I believe you have a flyer on it, called Exploitation and Technology. This is a 1-hour session for students in middle school and high school to educate them about the common tactics of people who are exploiting students, how they can be at risk through their online activity, how they can reach out to someone if this is something that's happening to them or someone that they know. And then it also provides them an opportunity actually in the classroom to practice some of these prevention skills. Since developing this curriculum a couple of years ago, we have taught it in literally to thousands and thousands of students in southeastern Minnesota. All of the middle school students and high school students in the Austin School District, for example, as well as the Houston County School District, the Rochester School District, smaller rural school districts like the Hayfield School District. We have received nothing but a positive response to this curriculum. Typically, we will train staff first so that they are able to identify those potential warning signs in students and that they know how to connect students up with services. Then we provide the curriculum to the students themselves, and we also offer a training for parents as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about this. We have many recommendations from staff and other school districts about this curriculum. And again, I want to thank you for your interest and willingness to address this topic.
My name is Jennifer Lloyd Benson. I am the CEO, Executive Director of Strength and Dignity, a nonprofit organization here in Albert Lea that works directly with victims and also works with prevention as well. At the present time, I am working with victims that are from our area, that are youth, and like Detective Flatness said, the average age is 12 to 14 years of age. So that is our primary age, and the girls that I'm working with are under the age of 17 are in high school. And so they have been subjected to this. They have friends that they know are online doing sexting, as well as having communications with other people on Facebook, and getting into relationships that are potentially a pimp relationship, and they don't know that. Part of the grooming process that they have is picking out girls that look vulnerable or even are on their Facebook, leaving messages, maybe just in a statement saying having a rough day, broke up with my boyfriend, and then somebody will come in and befriend them. And the kids these days, they pick up on that because they want to have as many relationships as they can. They want the numbers for their Facebook friends, as well as they're looking for attention. And when somebody is 12 or 14 or even 15, 16 years old, and if they are struggling with something and somebody is willing to give them their time to hear them out and to listen to them, they will do that. They will share all kinds of information, and that information then can be used against them. We have with sexting videos with girls taking pictures, and I have been told that is going on in the high school with the girls that I do work with. And so this is prevalent, and I just need these kids to be safe and to know what they are doing and protect them. They are our children, they are our future. And I have letters from the kids that I'm working with. They are not here this week. They are at another event that's going on, and so they've written letters to you guys to share with you, to help you guys understand what they themselves had been through. And they know that it's going on in the schools, and they are just looking for yours. We've had one girl that has gone to the high school principal's office and has requested twice to talk about this because they are aware of what is going on. These are the kids, they see what's going on in schools, they see what's going on with friends. We necessarily may not see that, and that's why we like to get education in for the teachers as well, to learn those red flags, and then knowing that we have resources available to these kids to help them.
Questions or comments? Personally, it's really mind-boggling to me that it happens at such a young age. And I guess, thank you for the information.
I have some questions. So the information we received is chapter 23 of a manual of some kind, and it's talking about sexual exploitation. Is it just the trafficking that it's speaking of, or can it include sexual abuse of children, all of those types of things, or are we just talking sex trafficking tonight as far as policy?
We're specifically addressing exploitation, sexual exploitation, and trafficking.
Okay.
Sexual abuse and sexual assault, of course, are very important topics, but this is what we're focusing on in terms of hoping to be able to do some prevention education on this. It's a relatively new law in Minnesota, and what we have found is those school districts in which we've done prevention education, our referrals go up, both from the students themselves as well as from staff, better able to identify students.
Thank you. And the curriculum, what grades are involved?
Middle school students and high school students. We have received requests for the curriculum at a younger age, but this is age appropriate and in compliance with national education standards. So at this point, we don't have something younger than that.
Thank you. And Jennifer, you and Dottie have been doing some education at the ALC. Is any of this incorporated in that as far as self-esteem? I know you've been teaching on self-esteem, that kind of thing.
In my Life Choice curriculum, it is a 10-week program. And so I no longer do it with Crime Victims Crisis Center since I started my own organization, but I am doing it with a private session right now with some girls. Self-esteem is in there, alcohol and drug is taught in that. You're learning about sexual relationships, healthy and unhealthy relationships. The girls are made to think and to figure that stuff out. This is interactive, so we just facilitate and we let the girls do the talking, and then we will just steer them in the direction. But a lot of it is for them to think things through and to realize what is out there.
Thank you.
And then I think in the letters that I got from the girls, that'll explain that in there, the different red flags. But with the curriculum that we are doing, we also, for what I do with our organization, is we go out and we do field trips. For self-esteem, we went to Kelly Gau's studio. We had somebody come in and teach yoga because a lot of the girls have anxiety and have trauma, so trauma-informed, and help them to understand or help get through the trauma. We just do all kinds of different things. We have been doing it for more than 10 weeks because that was upon the request that we do this and stay with it because the girls wanted it.
Thank you. And then I thought it was a good point, too, that Detective Flatness brought up about the chemical use piece of it, because a lot of times I think it is a precursor or coexisting with this type of situation. And I'm wondering, you know, in our school policy, which is what we do here, is set the policy, you know, how can we fine tune it and be more productive in bringing kids back into safety rather than pushing them out and being you know, hard consequences. And I guess that leads me to my last question, which is, has anybody looked at our policies, for example? Do you have suggestions for policy changes? Otherwise, is that something that we will proceed with?
Well, thank you for recognizing that connection between chemical dependency and exploitation. In the training that we provide for staff, one of the documents that we bring is a risk assessment tool that any staff member can use in meeting with a student, having conversations with them or their parents, which goes through all the variety of risk factors for students. And one of them, of course, is drug or alcohol usage, along with other things that you might be able to suspect, like you know, missing school, frequent absences from school, and a variety of other things. So I think having that risk assessment tool is very helpful, not only for teachers, but of course your school counselors, principals, vice principals. This is a risk assessment tool that is in use in many counties in our region now as a way to help professionals working with youth be able to identify this.
Thank you. I also noticed a couple other pieces in the information that you sent. One of them was suggesting to have an IEP for all students that are coming back into school after being in placement. I don't know if we have anything like that set up in the district. And then one other piece that I thought was very important was, I think it was Section 5 about decreasing out-of-school suspension. It's one of the items that I brought back from the school board conference that I had attended a workshop who they suggested doing away with the out-of-school suspension, that it does just push kids away and does decrease their engagement rather than keeping them here and learning and safe and engaged. And so I would renew my request that we look at out-of-school suspension policy. Thank you.
I have a question. The curriculum you're talking about, is it like once a week at the classroom level, or and for 10 weeks, or all year round, or how does it work?
Thank you for asking about that. No, this curriculum, we understand how precious education time is and time in the classroom. So we developed in consultation with the variety of districts that we've worked with, and the request that we received was to be able to do a one-time session covering exploitation, which includes sexting as well as other forms of exploitation. Different schools have implemented that, so it's kind of one and done, to be honest. Ideally, it's part of a larger effort to address, you know, sexual consent and violence, but this particular curriculum is just the one session. As Jennifer pointed out, there are other curriculums that are more in-depth for more at-risk students, but we wanted to design something that would basically blanket all, ensure all students have basic knowledge of exploitation and how it happens too, and where are resources for help. So different school districts have implemented it differently. Some have done it through their health class, some have done it through their social science class, some have done it as a general assembly, and we always are willing to tailor it to each district to make it fit, you know, in that school, in that district. Yep. Staff, it's great to have a little longer because they normally have questions. And then we also have a session that's available for parents in the evening if that's something that the district is interested in. And some districts, all districts handle it a little differently. Some videotape the presentation and put it on the school website to allow community access to it that way as well. Actually, I brought with me tonight the risk assessment tool. I'm happy to pass that around. I would say that some of our top red flags are, again, regular absences from school, knowledge that a student might be couch hopping or surfing, staying with different friends, the use of drugs or alcohol. Those are definitely top red flags. Once we know that's going on with a student, it's really imperative that a staff member that's trained on this can have a little deeper conversation about what else might be going on in their life. I'm going to just pass around, so you all have it, a copy of the risk assessment tool. This was developed with the input of a variety of system professionals from probation to social services in our region.
Ken, I guess I have at least two questions and concerns here. You've suggested that perhaps we do have a problem in District 241 in our community. You mentioned some girls that had talked to the principal. That's one question. Do we have an issue? And secondly, what are we doing about it currently? And I guess the third question would be, are you suggesting that you have a service that you could provide to our district that we should consider looking into?
First, I can say that there is sex trafficking going on in the city of Albert Lea, and it does involve young people. What scope is really hard to determine, since it is so underreported, and we are aware that people are trading sex for housing, they're trading sex for food, they're trading sex for drugs. They're selling themselves to the public in order to make money for the boyfriend, the person that's controlling them. So I have no idea of the scope. We just are aware that there is a high potential here.
Well, it certainly sounds like something that, whether we have a problem with it or not, it's something that we should address so that we don't have a problem with it. And I guess my second question is, what are we currently doing about this in our curriculum?
I'm not sure what you're doing. We have been around to some of the other outlying schools. We've been to Alden School. We have been to Glenville. We've been to New Richland. We've been to the community college. We present first kind of a basic overview, and then hopefully they'll have the opportunity to have Laura's more intense individual training.
We're very fortunate here in Albert Lea to have law enforcement that takes this issue very seriously and is proactive in doing operations to address it. In terms of the education, I think you all probably know better than certainly I do if this is being addressed currently in the school district. I'm not aware of exploitation and trafficking per se being addressed, but I could be wrong about that. In terms of the education that our office offers as a Safe Harbor Regional Navigator, we are one of 8 offices in the state charged with implementing the Safe Harbor law. So it is part of our responsibility under the state of Minnesota to provide prevention education on this topic.
I know as I talked to a couple of you, I continue to say I felt like a person with their head in the sand, because you don't really hear about it. And you go, really, how come? You know, and you wonder why it never is going to happen to me or anyone close to me. Can you kind of give us a little background why we maybe don't hear about it? And I'm specifically talking about the, what is it, the under age 18 or 21 that we're not going to hear about?
Our office has worked with many victims of exploitation at this point who are 18 and under. Generally, once someone has been lured into this, targeted through social media, tricked into a relationship. There's a variety of reasons why they're not comfortable coming forward and disclosing that. They're afraid they'll get in trouble with their parents. They're afraid they can get in trouble with law enforcement, for example. And so it's very rare that students will just come forward on their own. That's why prevention education is so important, because we see once students learn about this in a safe setting, and we go through all of the potential resources they have for if this is something that they're concerned about, like I said, in their life or a friend's life, and they know that our law, our safe harbor law, actually protects them, that they will not get in trouble for being involved in exploitation, then we see referrals go up. But until students know that, we really don't know how much of a problem there is until we do prevention education on it and let students know where they can turn for resources and help.
And then also, what is it, there's no charges filed up to a certain age, how does that work?
Anyone under 18 is considered a victim, a child abuse victim, and so they are never charged.
We do have counselors coming into the elementary schools for next year, correct? 4 counselors full-time. Would this be something that they could also be trained to some
Definitely.
extent?
Definitely need to be aware of that so that they pick up the signals from the students.
On my caseload, the youngest student I've had is 8 years old, and not that long ago, we had someone come into our office who was 11 years old. So again, why this prevention curriculum targets middle school and high school students, we have seen it occurring even younger. So absolutely, training all of the social workers and counselors, I think, is a very good idea in the district.
In District 241, we have had 5th graders sending nude pictures of themselves over gaming devices, et cetera. So it is occurring.
And sharing all your information. You guys sound like you do a really good job. This is something that I personally would like to see here in our district. Seems like you guys have a lot to offer us.
Thank you.
Yeah, there again, I'm curious as to what we're currently doing. I taught in this district for 46 years, but I taught English and math in high school, so it's a little out of my field. If we're not doing something, we definitely should be, and that's something that as a board, we should look into.
I am aware that one of the other detectives at the Law Enforcement Center has presented to 6th graders. I believe that teaches about sexting and texting to 6th graders, but the scope goes far beyond that as far as problems.
Of course, we're happy to meet with any curriculum team, as well as teachers who might be implementing this in the classroom to tailor it so it's appropriate here.
I would just like to share one part of one of the letters that you guys did not receive. And this is from, if they find anyone or anything they see fit to do the job, they'll do whatever they can do to get it. In my case, my older brother was the first in my family to be subjected to this lifestyle. And when he wasn't able to satisfy them, they waited for me. The thing about this that really hits a nerve is knowing that these people lied and plotted me out for almost 2 years. These people are patient, yet very demanding at the same time.
Okay,
I'm in agreement that the curriculum would be a great thing for the district.
we will discuss it with, of course, our principals and superintendent and get back to you. I want to thank you for your commitment to this challenge. I'm sure it's everywhere, and we're kind of naive. And so we certainly appreciate the information and appreciate your commitment to try to keep this to a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, moving on to 9.1, and it's Mayo Clinic Health Systems discussion. I think everyone is, many of you have attended the meetings, and I guess I put together a resolution for your consideration. And so I guess I would open it up for some type of action, if you so desire. I think it's important that we understand that Dr. Shoddy is in a challenging spot and he needs to abstain, and we certainly understand that. So if you want to review that statement and maybe you want to make modifications or make that a motion. And I'll read it just so everyone out there understands what has been written. The District 241 School Board supports the community efforts to maintain a full-service hospital in Albert Lea to meet the needs of the community. A full-service hospital is crucial for our district as we attempt to recruit and retain quality staff.
I would also add that it has to do with our student wellness as well, student and family wellness.
I'm sitting right next to you, Jill, and forgive my deafness, but I can't, what did you say?
It says to recruit and retain a quality staff, but I would also find it important that it would be important for student and family wellness.
So would they promote or preserve student and family wellness to be added?
Yeah, I see where you're going there with that, Joe. You are suggesting that without a full-service hospital, we may lose some edge in attracting teachers to our district, correct?
Yeah, I think that's Ken's point, and then I'm just adding the health piece for the students themselves.
Ken, it may be redundant, but efforts to maintain a full-service acute care hospital, I know that term has been used, acute care, along with full service. And I'm not a medical expert, so I think I know what acute care means, but I'm not. I've heard it used quite a bit in connection with our current situation. Well, just to add it to the sentence, efforts to maintain a full-service acute care hospital. With those changes, I would move that we adopt this resolution.
Okay, is there a second on the motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Well, it's, you know, the community has been pretty responsive here, and a number of us on the board have been a part of that. And I just can't imagine any board or commissioners or council people, anybody, the Chamber of Commerce, anybody that's concerned with the future of Albert Lea, I can't imagine them not supporting something like this. Medical care is something that's a product which is not very elastic. I mean, if you need it, you need it, and you can't go someplace else. And we are a community of a city of Albert Lea of about 18,000 people. I think something like 30,000 in the Freeborn County and the surrounding area. Add another 30,000 perhaps in the small communities around us, especially to the west of us. We'd be severely strapped, I would think, if we did not have available in this location, Albert Lea, and a full-service acute care hospital. And there's ripples, I would think, that would go in every direction, which would affect the population of our community and the prospect for growth. I know we have a lot of people that are working very hard to improve the climate, the economic climate of Albert Lea. And boy, without, I may be wrong, but it seems to me without a full-service acute care hospital as a part of that core community, it's just isn't going to happen. And you know, some of the speakers alluded to the fact that we are losing students, and I think if this happened, we might lose a few more students, and we might you know, end up consolidating with some district elsewhere because we don't have enough students to fill our schools.
You know, I know from a personal standpoint too, I can say as my oldest son and his wife are moving back to the area and we're looking for housing, it's definitely part of the discussion. You know, there's more factors to it than that, but it is something that as you want to start a family and things like that, you know, you have to keep everything in mind.
I did speak to a CFO from another hospital chain, and the comment was that he doesn't believe that there's a town that has over 10,000 people that does not have a hospital. I'm not sure that's a fact, but for sure, a town this size, it's very critical. Your points are well taken. Any other comments?
Yeah, I know it's very sensitive for Mark, you know, and I sympathize with a lot of people who are involved in male health care. I think Pastor Joel Erickson put it extremely well. The ability of the male health care to take care of medical developments. The Mayo does an absolutely superb job, second to none, of dealing with medical conditions. But I think they're a little bit lacking in dealing with a commitment to community and with things outside of and beyond the treatment of medical conditions. They're fantastic in that regard, but I think sometimes the corporate mentality sometimes gets in the way of a concern for the needs of individuals.
Yeah, I agree that saving our services, I think it's imperative to Albert Lea, all the community members, and it'll affect our school district as well. And also seeing all the community members involved and trying so hard and working so hard, I think any efforts we can do, but you know, just to support that would be great.
And I also might add that I'd hate to think that there are any bad guys in this situation, you know. Certainly not Mark, he's not a bad guy. I would hate to have this occasion serve as a wedge that creates hard feelings in our community. And there are a lot of people that work for Mayo, and they're good people. And I just would hate to be a part of any movement that suggests that people are evil, you know, because they're taking a particular stance. And I don't see that to be the case.
I think we all agree that Mayo is a very important part of our community, and that's why the Save Our Hospital is forming the way it is, and the things that have happened and will happen. So they are a very important part of our community. So, any other questions or comments before we take the vote?
I guess I'll just add that I do support this resolution, that I believe it is a quality of life issue for our students and families.
Okay, we'll call the question then. All those in favor of the resolution written and also modified signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Okay. At this time, we will go into closed session under Minnesota Statute 13D, 6.03 on labor negotiations. Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.